Hello dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Avneet Kaur, Assistant Professor in Education, Ranjit Avenue, Amritsar. Today we will discuss about the topic Multi-Level Educational Administration, Management and Governance. The objectives of this topic are to understand the concept and functions of educational administration, elucidate the concept and functions of educational management, understand the concept of educational governance, describe the structure of educational administration, management and governance at central level, state level and local level, understand the administration of the education system at primary and secondary level. So now let us start with the meaning and functions of educational administration. The term administration has been derived from the Latin word ministik, which means services rendered to others for their welfare. Good's Dictionary of Education defines educational administration as all those techniques and procedures employed in operating the educational organization in accordance with established policies. The educational administration is concerned with both human resources and material resources. The human resources include children, parents, teachers, employees, other citizens, university or board of education, officials at local, state and national levels of the government. On the other hand, the material resources include money, buildings, grounds, equipments and institutional supplies. Now we will go through the major functions of educational administration in India. The first function is planning, which involves systematic, organized and an articulated scheme of working. Second is organization, which includes defining the purpose, analyzing and identifying tasks required to meet these objectives, allocate related activities to other staff, providing for management and coordination of activities, and establish a reporting and communication channel. The third function is direction, which involves exercising leadership, motivating people, determining accountability, and developing guidelines for action. The fourth function is controlling, which involves measuring and monitoring performance, comparing results with plans, and taking corrective action when required. Next, we will study about educational management, its meaning and functions briefly. Management has been derived from a French word manage, which means housekeeping. According to Mobile 1969, management is that activity in an organization which consists in deciding upon the ends or goals of an organization which the goals are to be effectively reached. Now we will discuss briefly the functions of educational management. The first function is planning. It involves the process of defining goals, establishing strategies for achieving these goals, and developing plans to integrate and coordinate activities. The second function is organizing. It involves the process of determining what tasks are to be done, who is to do them, how the tasks are to be grouped, who reports to whom, and when decisions are to be made. The third function is leading. It involves motivating subordinates, influencing individuals or teams as they work, and selecting most effective communication channel. The fourth function is staffing. It includes formulating staff personnel policies, recruitment of staff, selecting, orienting and assigning duties to staff, and providing staff welfare measures. At the last comes controlling. It involves monitoring actual performance, comparing it to the standard, and taking actions if necessary. Next, we will briefly study about the concept of educational governance. Educational governance refers to authority and decision making within the system. It includes how the education system is organized and power is allocated, what structures and decision making processes are in place, formal roles and responsibilities, and the relationship between central and local authorities. It is also concerned with how funding, provision, ownership and regulation of education and training systems is coordinated, and at what level: local, regional, national and supranational. So students, this was a brief introduction to educational administration, management and governance. Now we will understand the multi-level educational administration, management and governance. Over the years, since independence in 1947, there has been a shift in the process of educational planning from centralization to decentralization, from macro planning to micro planning, and the district has been accepted as the most appropriate unit of planning. The various levels of educational administration, management, and governance are central level, state level, and local level. At present, education is the joint responsibility of states and center. It has been developed to manage education at different levels, namely center, state, and local level. Local level further comprises three internal administrative sub-levels: district, block, and village level or Panchayat level, as shown in the given figure. India currently has 29 states and 7 union territories. The state organizations and institutions are divided by districts and blocks. The responsibilities of the different levels of government are also explained in detail by the Constitution. The 7th schedule of the Constitution, that is Article 246, has 3 lists: union list, state list and concurrent list, which includes the jurisdiction of both central and state government. The union government and the state governments have co-jurisdiction over legislative powers concerning economic and social plans, social security, education, trade, industry, electricity enterprises, and the like. The 11th and 12th schedule, which includes Article 243G and 243W of the Constitution, explains the jurisdiction of rural governments called Panchayats and urban governments. Now we will focus on the educational administration, management and governance at central level. Ministry of Human Resource Development, which is also known as MHRD, is the main governing agency of Government of India at central level. It was renamed from Ministry of Education in 1985. It is responsible for all matters pertaining to education, including overall planning of programs and providing guidance for their implementation. This ministry is responsible for educational development of the country. The ministry has 2 departments, namely Department of School Education and Literacy and Department of Higher Education. As shown in the figure, the Department of School Education includes elementary education, secondary education and adult education. Next, the Literacy and Department of Higher Education includes university and higher education, technical education, book promotion and copyright, scholarships, languages and minority education. The Ministry of Human Resource Development is headed by a cabinet minister of the union government. The Department of Education under the Ministry of Human Resource Development is under the charge of a Minister of State who is advised at the official level by the Secretary to the department, assisted by an additional Secretary and Educational Advisor on academic and policy matters of education. The Directorate of Education, DOE, consists of several bureaus, each of which is headed by a Joint Secretary on Joint Education Advisor. These officials are assisted by directors, deputy secretaries or deputy education advisors, who are divisional heads. In terms, they are further assisted by undersecretaries or assistant educational advisors, who have 1 or more subdivisions under them. The structure of educational administration at central level is shown in the given figure. At the top, we have the Education Minister. Next is the Minister of State of Education. Then comes the Deputy Minister of Education. Next is the Education Secretary. Then comes the Advisor, Deputy Advisor and Program Department. Next comes the Director, which includes the Director Project, Director Adult Education and Director Statistics and Information. Next in the hierarchy is the Joint Secretary, which includes Program Controller, Education Advisor, Deputy Secretary School Division, Deputy Secretary UNESCO Division and Assistant Educational Advisor Publication Unit. Then comes the Director Internal Finance. Next, we have a joint secretary under whom there are director administration, deputy secretary book improvement, deputy secretary Hindi section, special officer Sanskrit, and sub-education advisor, deputy secretary youth services. Next is the joint educational advisor under whom there comes a sub-advisor higher education, a deputy secretary foreign scholarships, and a sub-advisor union territories. Last in these levels comes the educational advisor technical, under whom there is a sub-advisor technical education division. Now we will discuss about the role of central government in educational financing. Since independence, the central government has started spending large amount of money on education. The central government gives grant-in aid to states, universities and special institutions in order to help them to discharge their educational obligations. It gives special grants to backward states in order to equalize them with other states. It finances the centrally administered areas and gives scholarships and stipends under the various scholarship schemes. The contributions of the central government and state governments have increased from time to time. Following are the important reasons for this increase. Firstly, the central government must assist the backward states for providing better educational opportunities. Secondly, the central government must assist the state in realizing the constitutional provisions for providing compulsory primary education in the age group 6 to 14 years. Thirdly, the central government has large resources for collecting finances. Fourthly, the central fund must be utilized for providing equality of opportunity. The central government assists the states for educational development in three ways. Firstly, it performs educational functions through NCERT, UGC, central universities, central school organizations, etc. Secondly, it sponsors schemes fully financed by it but implemented by the states. And thirdly, it partially finances some programs planned and implemented by the state governments. At the central level, the direction of educational policy is in the hands of Central Advisory Board of Education, CABE, which is headed by a famous educationist and educational administrator. The central government has also set up some specialist institutions for encouraging education in the country, which are given as follows. Central Board of Secondary Education, New Delhi, Central Hindi Directorate, New Delhi, which is also known as Kendriya Hindi Nirdeshalaya, Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysore, Central Institute of English and Foreign Languages, Hyderabad, Educational Consultants of India Limited, New Delhi, etc., and many more. Next, we will discuss the educational administration, management and governance at state level. The states of India have their separate ministries for education. The Ministry for Education of a particular state consists of a cabinet minister followed by a state minister. The state governments also formulate policies for education. There is also provision of acts and bills in the state legislature. These are brought whenever necessary. The minister is responsible to present the bill in the state legislative assembly for receiving grants and aids. At the state level, the educational administration is structured as shown in the figure given. At the top, we have a cabinet minister or the education minister. Next follows the deputy minister of education. Next in the sequence is the educational secretary. Then comes the joint secretary, education, under whom there are an additional secretary, a deputy secretary and an assistant secretary. Next follows the educational director. Then comes the additional director of education. Next is the deputy director of education. Then follows the assistant director of education. Next is the regional director of education. Then comes the district inspector of schools. Next is the deputy inspector of schools, and at the end we have the sub-deputy inspectors. Now we will discuss about the responsibilities of the state government regarding school education. First, to establish and maintain educational institutions. Second, to recognize for the establishment of schools. Third, to provide grants to schools managed by private governing bodies. Fourth, to pass laws for different types of school education. Fifth, to supervise schools through DOs and supervisors at block level. Sixth, to recruit and place teachers in schools. Seventh, to prescribe the syllabus and supply books. Eighth, to establish school boards to conduct examination. Ninth, to provide special assistance to poor and backward students. 10th, to organize training programs for teachers and supervisors. 11th, to initiate action against teachers and schools in case of any lapse. 12th, to feed information to the center about schools. Now we will learn about the role of state governments in educational financing. The Finance Commission transfers adequate resources at the end of each plan to each state under, firstly, share its income tax, secondly, share in excise, and thirdly, lump sum grant in aid. The state recognizes schools and other institutions run by private bodies in accordance with set rules and regulations. It also provides them with suitable aids and grants to run efficiently and effectively. Financial aid is also given to universities functioning in the state. Next, we will learn about the educational administration, management and governance at local level. The responsibility for governance of school education was largely given to state governments. Thus, decentralization in public governance in general and in education in particular has consisted of moving decision-making powers to structures and authorities at sub-state levels. For successful implementation of decentralization, the main issue seems to be the establishment of institutional mechanisms below the state level. It is in this context that the concept of Panchayati Raj and the community development frameworks were adopted in the years after independence. The local self-government system under Panchayati Raj is conceived to consist of 3 tiers of political administrative structures beginning at district level, through the block level and the village level. This is also viewed as facilitating the emergence of grassroots democracy involving people in local electoral process. While political decentralization was to follow this framework, it was deemed appropriate to designate block level as the main unit for the development administration. Thus, a block development office was established in each block consisting of 100 to 150 villages. The district, which was the revenue division created during the British period, remained more or less intact. The basis of local administration is decentralization. And what is needed is that local administration should be strengthened and made effective. Within the education sector, to begin with, the district education office remained the main center of governance of school education in the district. After nearly 30 years of this setup, a separate office of the school education department came into existence at block or sub-district level in many states. This was partly due to the enormous expansion of the primary education system during the preceding 2 decades. The block education office now deals with elementary primary education in many states, while the district education office directly governs secondary education. Now we will discuss about the administrative structure of educational administration as recommended by Kothari Commission. As shown in the given figure, Kothari Commission has recommended educational administration mechanism at local level in which the Deputy Director School Administration includes District Education Office, which corresponds to District School Board at district level. Next in the hierarchy comes Block Education Office, which corresponds to Block School Committee at local level. Functions of various Panchayat bodies. Functions of Panchayat bodies related to education have been mentioned in a number of sections in the Panchayati Raj Institution Act 5. Some of the recommendations made in the Act are: first, the Gram Sabha will run the adult education program in the village. It is interesting to note that no mention has been made regarding the role of Gram Sabha in other aspects of education. Second, Gram Panchayat, governing body at the village level. It will provide education through primary and middle schools, create awareness among the people, and ensure enrollment of all the children in the primary school, construction and maintenance of hostels, etc. Third, Panchayat Samitis or block level bodies are expected to perform a variety of functions, particularly with respect to elementary education. These include the promotion of primary and secondary education, the construction and maintenance of school buildings, and the provision of education for working children. Fourth, roles identified for Zilla Parishad, district level body, includes the construction of roads to connect all the schools and colleges in the district, the construction and maintenance of primary and secondary schools, the construction and maintenance of hostels, ashram shalas, etc., the provision of scholarship, maintaining grants, the construction of schools and hostels for scheduled castes, scheduled tribe and other backward caste students, and the provision of free textbooks and teaching and learning materials for these groups. It is also specified that permanent committees of Jilla Parishad should be constituted for different sectoral areas, with one such committee, the Education and Health Committee, which would look after all the functions related to education. For meeting the expenditure on account of these responsibilities, the school committee should receive certain proportion of the income of local village panchayat, and second, the grant and aid fixed on the basis of equalization, that is, a larger grant being given to poorer areas and a smaller grant to richer areas. Now let us briefly discuss about the role of statutory councils and apex bodies. The statutory councils and apex bodies play roles in reforming the education system of the country. These councils or apex bodies are either established by the state governments or by the central government. They are responsible for recognition of courses, promotion of professional institutions, and providing grants to undergraduate and postgraduate programs and various awards. The important national councils of the country include All India Council for Technical Education, Indian Council for Agriculture Research, National Council for Teacher Education, Rehabilitation Council of India, etc. At the last, we will study about administration of the education system at primary and secondary level. Firstly, the primary education level. At the pre-primary stage, which is 0 to 6 years, there is an attempt to establish a linkage between Early Childhood Care and Education (ECCE) and other development programs, including the Integrated Child Development Scheme, for which Balwadis, Anganwadis or daycare centers and schemes are run by the government and NGOs and state governments. The principle of decentralization has been extended to the management of primary education, and village education committees have been set up in many parts of the country. These committees are responsible for the enrollment and retention of children in schools, supervise the functioning of schools, check teacher absenteeism, and mobilize additional resources for the schools. Thus, attempts have been made to elicit community participation not only in the preparation of educational plans, but also in the administration of educations, including mobilization of additional resources. District Board of Education plan and administer education at the district level. District-specific plans have been developed to increase infrastructural facilities, develop instructional material, train teachers, etc. The next level is secondary education level. At the state level, it is usually the departments of education that administer secondary education. At the national level, the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan New Delhi runs the Kendriya Vidyalayas, while the Navodaya Vidyalaya Samiti New Delhi runs the Navodaya Vidyalayas, that is, schools for talented rural children. The Central Board of Secondary Education, New Delhi, functions under the overall supervision of the Department of Education. Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. It deals with activities related to affiliation, academics and examination, and is known for introducing innovations and reforms at the secondary and senior secondary levels so as to bring education at par with international standards. To summarize, this module discusses about the multi-level educational administration, management and governance of school education in India, along with the brief description of its concept and functions. Education is the joint responsibility of state and the center. It has been developed to manage education at different levels, namely center, state, district, block and at the village level or Panchayat level. Ministry of Human Resource Development is the main governing agency of Government of India at central level. It is responsible for all the matters pertaining to education, including overall planning of programs and providing guidance for their implementation. The state recognizes schools and other institutions run by private bodies in accordance with set rules and regulations. It also provides them with suitable aids and grants to run efficiently and effectively. Within a state, there is generally a three-tier structure of administration, which includes the district, taluka or tehsil or block level and the village. The district has been so far the most important unit of administration. Thank you so much.